This is Big Man Tyrone, and you're about to watch the MtG Cabal cast with your hosts, Woad, Thirsty, and Reptile. Sub to us on all your podcast networks at MtG Cabal Cast and YouTube.
All right, guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabal cast. Today we're covering something we've touched on briefly almost every episode, it seems like, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth. Before I give the topic, I do want to note that correlation does not equal causation. So we're not saying these things caused each other, but they're certainly correlated at the very least. Mm-hmm. And that is coverage or content creation linked to spikes in cards. Like Saffron Olive obviously has an effect on that. That's a known entity. There have been several picks that each of us have had where we've said, you know, this is the type of thing that Saffron Olive is going to make a video of and 5-0 and it's going to explode.
Yes.
So we've got some specific examples that we're going to get into, along with, you know, data points to back that up as far as what percentages you saw, stuff like that. So with that, let's get started.
All right. So we have a decent list to start with, and I think one of the more interesting ones is going to be looking at portal bears, thanks to the legend out of Modern Horizons. Everybody knew that. I don't know how to pronounce its name.
Ayula,
was going to pop a few bears, but what nobody expected was, and I have Graham's list from Game Nights, which is actually what a lot of people attribute as the cause, was that things like Razor Claw Bear pops to $52. Bear Cub is now a $3 card, and the Forest Bear itself is a $40 card. Now, the latter two are just tutus. They don't do a whole lot. Razor Claw Bear, as you saw in the image, I flashed up quickly, just gives +2/+0 when it blocks. But you basically need all these bears to play Mono Bear Tribal.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't to say that other cards in the list, like Words of Wilding, the Onslaught Enchantment, that makes bears, wouldn't also pop. But specifically, these Portal Bears just went insane in comparison to everything else.
And worth noting, the floor on the Portal Bears stuck, whereas some of the other cards like Words of Wilding, they shot up to, you know, a $12 card, and that floor did not necessarily stick on all of those. Now LP low on TCG is $3.
Yep.
So whereas the Portal Bears were $3 cards that shot up to, you know, 60 to 100 and settled at 40. So they have a very high impact on the floor from this video, this legend, this stuff. So
one of the interesting things that I found, and I'm going to bring up the Word of Wilding stock so you guys can see exactly what Thirsty was talking about, was it's nothing until Horizons. It's everything, and then it starts to come back down. Razor Claw Bears is stuck, and it's always had a price point on stocks, but Bear Cub had no price point. Basically, it does not have historics to bring up and show you guys, because it was nothing until Modern Horizons or thereafter when people started to buy into this deck a little more. But we can point specifically to a list on Tapped Out attributed to Graham from Game Nights that people are going to build one for one. Whether Rec shows this or not, that's kind of TBD, because that's still a lot of user fluff, but we want to talk about exactly that flashpoint, and we have it. So that's the first one. It was the easiest one to kind of call out because it was very specific and easy to see.
Another good one that we noticed was the Yortiller Nephilim spike that was right after a episode of Game Nights, which, again, Game Nights tends to be a little bit more of a casual flair. We talk about how casuals drive the market, and we talk about how EDH is such a huge impact. Yortiller is interesting because it was the type of thing that for years people were just house ruling it as a commander for EDH because 4-color commanders didn't exist.
Yes.
We just didn't have them, so they were like, all right, the Nephilims, you can use those, I guess. There's no reason they shouldn't be legendary. They have legendary effects, whatever else. So that was in November, and then in, I believe, a few years ago, I think.
Yep.
And then there was a SCG Versus episode the following April, which we'll post the link to in the description of the video, that corresponds to when the foil spike occurred.
Yeah.
So
that one I like a little more because you can see the Star City video I was able to find. That was released at the end of April, and I've got the foil graph up now for stocks, and you can see shortly after the video comes out in April, maybe it's like 2 or 3 weeks later into May, it just spikes up infinitely and drops back down. It settles a little bit. But that's what we're looking for here, is we're looking for cards that are just going to spike because they came in hot off somebody's coverage, somebody's video, and whether or not they held or they didn't, that's not the point of the beginning of this exercise. It's to say that there is legitimacy behind these spikes now. You can no longer just kind of set them aside. That's something we like to talk about when content like this meant for the more casual gamers started to come out. Was we really did attribute it solely to Saffron Olive, to the point where we just called it the Saffron Olive effect. Yeah. And this is when leagues were brand new and in their current format where you could just play whatever you want and go 5-0, and people were jumping on cards that Olive was able to take to a 5-0 even in a casual league. So we'd see it spike on Moto, we'd see it spike in paper, and sometimes they would hold and sometimes they wouldn't, but it became this thing where, you know, the videos went up on a certain date, and the next morning you could expect whatever, as long as there was a 5-0 or a 4-1 attached to it, something from that list or multiple cards from that list to go. Now we have a much larger audience paying attention to these videos. We have a larger number of players in the space for content across multiple formats. So we can start to see that the more you pay attention to people in that space, the notables, people even coming up. Friday night paper fights is something I talked to a local player of mine about a couple of weeks ago. I haven't really gotten into them yet, but it's going to be something else that we'll have to pay attention to as time goes on to see, all right, who's playing what, how did it do, what's the reaction.
And I think it's also worth noting that, like both of us have said, there's so many different areas where these content creators can hit. I'm a big fan of Spike Feeders and the Laboratory Maniacs. Because CEDH is great and those guys are awesome from every interaction I've ever had. But they have, as I'd mentioned a few episodes ago, that we're starting to see the CEDH boom. So that's the type of thing that, okay, let me check out the subreddit, see what content creators there are. Casual EDH is where you want to start targeting, find out the best groups for that, like game nights, for example. And obviously, Star City is a good starting spot for anyone. Whatever you say about their website, the redesign is not great, but they certainly do a good job of content creation and hyping the cards that they are using in their videos. And that's huge because it obviously ripples on down to pretty much anything you would want to do in finance. And I think that's definitely worth paying attention to.
Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a card that they're pushing. It could just be something that cleans up. And this is a kind of murky example that we have that I want to bring up in a moment. But it took me a while to figure this out over the past couple of days. Exanguinate is a card that's done work on multiple fronts for Star City. Stephen Green usually is the one that winds up playing it, not Parnell for some reason. Who knows? But
good old Stephen Green.
Exanguinate's a little different because this card has just gone up over time. There's no obvious spike until you really dig in and you look at the dates of some of the videos. I believe April 15th, 2015 is a video that they put out. Well, what happens between March and April 27th when that video hits? Price goes up. There's another video, 2016, November 23rd, and that one's a little harder to track down, and you can see that it just kind of flattens out. But this is one of those cards where when it swept up the first time in that game, there was a bump. Now it has exposure. They play it again. It continues to rise. And the more that people see this card do work, the more that they see it clean up a table, the more they see it on various streams or videos, etc., the more that people talk about this, the harder and faster this card's going to go. And it dodged a number of possible reprints in the meantime, but it is a staple in black or mono black decks. Black X or mono black decks in EDH.
And it's worth noting, too, that if you look at where this lasts since 2018, when it started like a very upward trajectory, you notice the set that started after was Iconic Masters, because a lot of people figured Iconic or A25 would be the spot that we'd get a reprint because it's kind of powerful for a standard format that isn't Orzhov based. But at that point, we dodged those reprints, and now we've just seen a steady increase, compounded by the fact that Wizards for now is not doing master sets. Who knows? But we could, again, see it in a commander set. But for now, you can see those spikes happen and see when that kicks in.
Yeah, and this is a card that also you can attribute the text to other cards as well, in the sense that they'll run parallel, right? This hits every opponent at the table. You'll clear out a table. You don't have to worry about recursion. You just play the spell and win. So it's important to know that you can attribute this to other similar cards. It's not the same as corruption or drain life or things like that. It just gets the table. Very key. And like I said, it's important to note that exposure in and of itself is what's going to drive things like this. And then when you look at the graph and you can see that, it dodged the IMA, it dodged the UMA reprint, and then it dodged Modern Horizons, and you can see that that's why the market and the average are just riding the way they are. And then the last few examples that we have come from probably one of the most notable streamers in the last year or so.
Yeah,
we can probably go back and forth. If you want to take the first set, I've got most of those images up now.
Sure. So this is going to be from Mr. Glugowski, Pewter. The first one, April 30th, was when Neoform spiked. So Neoform got spoiled, and everyone was like, man, this looks kind of ridiculous. And we have a link to the tweet that we'll throw up that was basically Piotr saying, this is what I'm going to start doing. And after that, Neoform took off. The deck was the hottest spice in the world, and that's when it happened, basically.
Yeah, and you can track this one to the day, which is awesome. You look at Chancellor, April 29th, nothing. 2 days later, everything.
Yeah. And it's, especially compounded with London Mulligan. And this is a financial explosion that wasn't backed up by competitive performance. This didn't take down a bunch of events. It didn't become the deck to beat in the format. It was just a very hyped, popular deck that a content creator, which granted, he's an MPL player, so he's obviously got some merit to being a good player there. But he created the content, and shortly thereafter, this deck took off. And people, before it even did anything, were already calling for a ban of Neoform. They were already saying the London Mulligan made the format unplayable. It turns out that was Modern Horizons, not the London Mulligan.
That is correct.
But I digress.
Yep, and on the 30th, he put out the 29th, he put out that tweet with the original deck list that I brought up. I believe it's within 3 or 4 days later, he starts posting lists that 5-0 individual leagues because he's making changes, and states in almost every one that the London Mulligan was not part of those leagues he was playing. Because he was playing in a time on Moto where the London Mulligan hadn't been implemented yet. There was about a week or so of this weird time, and then they got it for Modern. And then. Eventually, when Modern Horizons hit, Force of Negation kind of cleared the way and allowed people to play a more fair game. The deck fell off. But this is a great example of there was no time to react if you weren't already paying attention. If you didn't have this person in your sphere of influence, then you were going to miss entirely.
Yep.
Similarly, Piotr last weekend, or was it 2 weekends ago? I don't know, my timeline's out of whack. Tweeted about a Dimir Splinter Twin deck that he was playing. So, he throws up a tweet again. January 24th at 5:14 a.m. EST, playing Splinter Twin and Pioneer. And what do we have? We have blue-black Inverter of Truths.
Yep.
So, what happens? Well, now we have a stepwise graph for Inverter of Truth, starting on the 26th. Hours later.
Yeah.
This card jumps. There was a little bit of musing about Inverter when Thassa's Oracle came out. I've dug up some of our conversations about it, but they were not really attributed to anything. We were trying to figure out how to make it work more in Modern, because that seemed a little more plausible. With something like Spoils of the Vault, we thought, if Thassa's Oracle takes off, it's not going to be in Pioneer, because there's not a lot of great ways for you to just flip your library into your graveyard or exile it. You know, we were looking at Reality Shift, which you've talked about before. There's still Leveler, which was a spike from Jace, Wielder. And then the card that I pulled out was Spoils of the Vault, which is already being played in the Ad Nauseam deck in Modern, where you basically play Spoils of the Vault. It's a 1 black instant, and you name a card, and you reveal cards from the top of your library until you find the chosen card. Exile all cards, reveal this way, take damage equal to the number of cards exiled. Well, when you are sitting under Angel's Grace, or you are sitting under Phyrexian Unlife, ways where you can't lose life or lose the game, you exile your entire deck, play Thassa's Oracle for 2, win on the spot. That costs 3 mana total, 1 black, 2 blue to do that. Bam. So we were concerned with that. We were not concerned with Inverter or Jace at that point, because we figured...
Or bad.
Yeah, well, everybody kind of ordered it properly for older formats, where Thassa's Oracle was the best, because the ability goes on the stack and needs to resolve, so the only way to get rid of it is Trickbind or Stifle, or the Slime, the Simic Slime instant, the counter spell or counter target trigger activator trigger
Void
ability.
Slime.
Void Slime, yeah. Nimble Obstructionist, cards like that. You have to be very narrowly focused to stop Oracle of Thassa. And then Jace, then Laboratory Maniac. Because Jace is harder to deal with once it's on the battlefield compared to Laboratory Maniac. But we figured 4x Thassa's Oracle because it's eminently the easiest one to cast after you exile your library. So Inverter just goes, not overnight, not as quickly as Jace does. It takes a stepwise graph, and I brought that up before. And a lot of the talk about this in particular one, unlike Neoform, which is just posting infinite results, was, is this good enough for Pioneer? Is this good enough for people to adopt? Inverter of Truth at the time was essentially a bulk mythic. You could buy it for under 50 cents. And there were people in our Discords that did. And they checked out somewhere between $1 and $3, because nobody knows, one, if this deck does survive a banning, are people going to continue to play it once it's solved? While your worst case scenario is a 6/6 flyer for 4 in Pioneer, you're still susceptible to counter magic. And 2, after Phoenix this weekend, the format's basically wide open for another ban and restricted announcement. Watsu said, and I'm glad they stuck to this, at least thus far at 6:15 p.m. Eastern Standard, that they would not be banning anything the week before another large event, a large competitive event. So, expecting no ban for Phoenix. This has everywhere to grow and nowhere to shrink until Monday.
Yeah. And that's, everyone was calling for the ban today. Oh, it's got to get banned today. The deck is too good. It was 20% of the field or whatever. Like, guys, chill. Like, give the meta time to adjust, and make sure that, you let the meta shake out. Because this is similar to, Ren and 6, Faithless Looting, everything else. As soon as the deck is too good, it's got to go. Ban it. Let the meta adjust. We have another Pro Tour this weekend where people are going to be gunning for Inverter.
100%.
Because it was overwhelmingly represented at both of the Pro Tours, or whatever you want to call them, this weekend. But this coming at Phoenix, which if you're there, swing by Moose Loot and say hi to me.
Get the plague from him.
We can see what the adjusted meta looks like. We can see if the meta does adapt. We can see if we should consider a ban.
Yeah.
Not before now.
Correct. The number I heard was 13% for the Mythic Championship in the EU day 1.
Yeah.
But that doesn't speak to the win rate. I don't have those numbers. I don't know if they went up. Frank Karsten tweeted that WotC has asked him to stop posting numbers like that, and he will be getting much less data in the future, because more data is bad data, apparently. So I don't know if those numbers are going to be forthcoming.
Yeah,
but
probably not.
It didn't win. It was in the finals. The Mythic Championship, and it did not win the Mythic Championship or Magic Fest, whatever it was, in Japan either. That was won by Bant Spirits.
Yep.
A nice aggressive deck with Spell Queller. Like, just good, honest work there. So unless this is rampant in Phoenix and just takes over the format on Moto and this week and Phoenix, I don't know if we'll see a ban on this. So my thought is that it's just going to slink away into the format. People are going to figure out how to play against this. The other card, the other part of this is Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, a card that came in very hot in regards to price, slunk down once War of the Spark bumped a tiny little bit, and then just did a whole lot of nothing until recently with Thassa's Oracle. Or not, sorry, Inverter of Truths, because this is the way you win in Pioneer. And this is kind of an ironic happenstance, because my bonus pick for this week was actually, based on our topic, was going to be Chase. Because last week, shortly after Piotr started playing Inverter on Moto, the Star City video that went up on Wednesday for Commander Versus was an Oathbreaker video. And John Suarez played Jace Wielder as his Planeswalker with Reality Shift as his Oathbreaker spell. Thassa's Oracle, Laboratory Maniac. John basically played this deck in Mono Blue and Oathbreaker, and I honestly thought that would move the card more than the Inverter deck. I didn't think the Inverter deck was good enough for Pioneer where it was. So, this is another twofold thing. It also so happens that Jace Wielder is a decent Oathbreaker general anyway.
Yeah. It works with Paradigm Shift as your spell.
Yep.
So that both pieces of your win condition are sitting right there in the command zone, which is great.
Yeah, you can see that on the Oathbreaker subsection of EDH Rec, which is a section I trust a little more because there's not a flood of information yet. People are still just kind of getting it out there. So, in the coming weeks, what are we going to pay attention to? It's going to be coverage, because I think we get that for Phoenix. We get MPL coverage. They announced the team for the next large arena event. And
is that? Yeah, that's next week, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And then between then and now, I believe Star City is off this coming week. They're back on, and we're still on the Mono Pioneer train. So that means if anything happens with the Inverter deck, chances are any innovation is going to come from Golgowski in this format. Other people kind of took what he did and ran with it. What lended the deck legitimacy was Martin Juza posting about it sometime mid last week, where he went 19-1 or something like that in leagues. Once I saw that, I was like, okay, that's it.
Yeah, this is real.
Yeah, people are going to move in here.
Yeah.
So if you're going to pay attention to Pioneer and Pioneer Finance, that's where I would look. I would start with Glogowski first and foremost, and then if you want to go more EDH style, like we like to do usually, you have your work cut out for you. We generally pay attention, or if not both of us, people in our Discords pay attention to game nights, Star City. I think the professor does some stuff every now and again on EDH. We follow Spike Feeders, so we get all their stuff. You gotta dig in and start paying a little more attention or lending more credit to, these personalities that are out there just doing the work for you to increase the value of your collection or kind of point you in the right direction when it comes to specs or finance or flipping in general.
Yeah.
Like, it's no longer the world where GP results come out on Sunday or PT results come out on Sunday and then everybody buys what was in the top 8 and plays it the next week. That's not where we are. You gotta move with the times.
And they're changing quickly, because it used to be Professor was it, Rudy was it, and now that or Saffron Olive, as we were wont to tout, was it. And now that's just simply not the case anymore. Growth has become exponential as quickly as possible. And now there are a lot of different facets that you have to pay attention to in order to get ahead. And again, it's better, in my opinion, to specialize. Pick the area you want to go in and stick with it.
Yep.
So pick the content creators you want, or if you want to dabble, pick the 2 or 3 best ones and go from there.
Agreed, definitely. And it's going to take some time for you to figure that out and kind of separate fact from feeling. Like, I feel like this person's the best. It does come down to visibility, and those, you might not like some people who have larger subscriber numbers or a larger audience compared to others, but you're going to have to.
Yeah.
That's just it. That's how you're going to get ahead, sadly.
Yeah.
But so for the main topic, that's it. What you got for me for a pick?
All right, so I am going to go for Kunaros, the Extended Art. So the reason I'm picking this is because, as we know, there are a million variations of literally everything.
Yes.
Now, every card has 40 different versions, uh, full art, different art, foil, non-foil, whatever. At any rate, the extended art of this card is barely more than the pre-release foil.
Mm-hmm.
The low for the regular one is 45 cents. The low for the extended art is $2.50.
Okay.
This is one of the most efficient cards for every format in Magic that they have printed in years.
Yep.
It stops a breach, which has been absurd in Legacy. It's been putting up decent results in Pioneer, and people have been experimenting with it in Modern. It stops Storm. It stops Dredge. Those decks exist in every Eternal format. And as long as they do, this good boy is going to be worth it. And I think that with these extended arts, I would expect we start to see production on these go down a little bit more. And you'll start to see the low-hanging fruits of these start to rise. And right now, Kunaros is one of the low-hanging fruits of these full arts. Lands notwithstanding, I don't really count those. Whatever. But in terms of the rares, it has the most utility, it has the most playability, and I think it has the most upside. Thassa's Oracle being another one, especially when you take a look at the foils currently. Wow, there are only 6 listed. As of Friday, when this pick was locked in, there were 32 listed under foil. Oh, sorry, I have the LP filter on. 41. So it's gone up since. My bad. That's because near mint is now $11.
Jeez.
Barely 3 times what the non-foil is. Now, keep in mind, they've increased the number of foils you get in packs, but they've increased the number of regular foils you get, not the full arts.
Yep.
So I just feel like of the recent experiments with these full arts, this one has the most potential room to grow, as well as currently the lowest floor.
Yeah, I like this as a card as a whole. When they spoiled it, we talked about it a bunch and trying to look at, what does what in Standard and how do you deal with the possibility of the Oven Cat deck or just mono black devotion starring Nightmare Shepherd.
My cat just made an appearance when you mentioned Oven Cat, so
perfect. How do you deal with that? And aside from Grafdigger's Cage, which is a universal answer, you have Kunaros as a very good on-rate card. The only thing I dislike about it are the keywords. I don't like Menace on there. I'd rather have Death Touch, but that's...
Oh, for sure, yeah.
That's just me being picky about the card. 3/3 for 3 with enough of these abilities, with Vigilance and Lifelink itself, is decently on-rate.
Very efficient, yeah.
So there's a good chance that this card goes down a little more if nothing in Standard really does much, and I don't know if this is enough to bring back an Abzan-style deck in Modern, but this definitely affords Pioneer a little bit of reach into the graveyard, which it only has in the form of, I believe, Grafdigger's Cage and Line of the Void. So it's going to be good there. Whether or not it'll be good enough in Modern to take care of Breach, that I don't know.
Yeah.
Just because Modern can move faster, then you can cast Breach and combo, start to combo
in the same
faster.
turn.
Yeah. Then Pupper can really get online. So you might just be able to get out ahead of it in Modern. Otherwise, I like the pick just because it's been a card I've liked since they spoiled it, and it definitely has room to grow, especially if Standard goes back to a graveyard style meta like it used to be.
Yeah, which it seems like they're trying to get to with Uro. That card is busted in half.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, absolutely. If the Titans take over, that's a good point. If the Titans do actually start making an appearance in Standard, then you'll probably see Kunaros go up and then Kea shortly after.
Yeah.
Because right now she's basically a bottom bin planeswalker with nothing to do. Too slow to really deal with the Oven Cat deck because she works at sorcery speed. But if you have to leave things lying around like the Titans, then she can sweep them up.
Yeah.
And just because the Pupper's blocking access to the Titan doesn't mean Kea can't eat it still. It just, both of them solve your problem if one were to be removed. So I like it overall. I'm curious how long of a spec it's going to be, but I think it's a nice pickup, especially now that we're past release weekend and all the CE cruft has been opened. So my pick is going to be sticking along with the straight and narrow of EDH, and I'm going to go with my pick is going to be Mirage Mirror for this week. It's not quite a pet card. It's just a card that I've liked since release. I thought it was criminally undervalued, and shortly after picking it, it's just gone and gone and gone. I picked this 4 or 5 days ago, and it's moved, I think, close to $1.50. It's hard. The reason I like this card isn't because of the amount of decks it's in an EDH rec. It's only in 4% of decks on rec of everyone possible, which is less than other artifacts in the space. The closest comparison would be Phyrexian Metamorph, which is in 2 times as many decks, but at twice the cost. But it's also a constructed staple for older formats. This has appeared in Modern, it has appeared in Legacy, it has appeared in Vintage. It also has a Phyrexian Mind symbol, which definitely mucks with the price point on it.
Yeah.
So this is just a unique effect that exists in EDH, where you just get to change what Mirage Mirror is whenever you need to. And that allows it to just do ridiculous things. Unless it is reprinted, which I thought it would get in Eldraine.
It is in the Theros Beyond Death promo packs, which is worth noting because in about a month is when you should buy in.
Yes.
Because then they're going to flood.
Just like my Sunbird's Invocation pick, I'm going to keep getting Hoist until the day I die. But
It'll pay off one day.
I thought Mirage Mirror was going to get the reprint in Eldraine because it made sense as the Magic Mirror.
Mirage Mirror, flavor-wise, that's spot on.
Yeah. And ironically, after the announcement of the Theros Beyond Death promo packs, it's still gone up. We will see it flatten or come back down after those. But this is an extremely unique effect on an artifact that's hard to find and easy to abuse in EDH. And I understand why it's not in CDH, because it costs 5 to do its thing.
Yeah.
But this is something that can and should not be slept on.
Yeah, it's still... And it may see play in CEDH in some lists. I know there's a couple now, some Teferi lists are running it. But I like this pick a lot. Yeah. I think it's, depth can run it in Legacy. It can literally replicate any combo piece you need. That's great.
That's why I like it. Like, Panharmonicon is a busted card, and every time you can replicate that effect, you should. And Mirage Mirror allows you to do that on another permanent that's very hard to deal with, especially because you can give it hexproof at a moment's notice as long as something with hexproof exists on the battlefield.
Yeah. This
is just a tricky card to deal with, and it definitely deserves a price point that is north of $5. So,
agreed.
Like Thirsty said, this is definitely something, if you can get it now, get it. If you can wait on it for a couple of weeks or months, you'll probably be able to pick it up at sub 3-ish, maybe sub 4.
Yeah.
But it's not a card I imagine sticking around at this price point for a very long time.
No.
I did not do my due diligence when it comes to population, just because it's not a card that people ask for. It's never a card that really kind of piques people's fancy. But keep your eye on that. You'll see it start to dwindle eventually, and then that's the moment to move, because once it starts, it's gone.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's going to close us out for this week.
I think so.
Next week, we might be a little delayed because we have to record late on a Tuesday.
Yes, I will be this weekend at the GP/Pro Tour vending, so feel free to pop by Moose Loot, like I said, say, hey, what's up? If any of you are out there, tweet us, we can get dinner, something, whatever.
There you go.
It'll be sweet.
Other than that, taking a look now, there are 118 listings for Mirage Mirror at LP or better on TCG Player for non-foil, which is not a lot, but it's not that great for a card that we're expecting to move soon. Probably once it heads towards 70, that's when I would expect this card to take off. But closing out this week, we are at MtG Cabalcast. I am at HaltIamReptar on Twitter. You are?
I am at Thirsty Sizzler.
You can find us on YouTube, on iTunes, on Stitcher, maybe eventually Spotify when we feel like doing that. Otherwise, keep leaving us feedback, and we'll see you next week.
Yep, see you later.